Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Nikki from Illuminated Movement Astrology, here to talk today about Mercury retrograde in Aries. So, recording this on April the 1st, Mercury has just gone retrograde. And I want to talk about a little bit about the retrograde itself, but I really want to focus as well on Mercury retrograde energizing the eclipse. What messages are Mercury going to bring to us about the eclipse, about the planets that are related to the eclipse, about what we need to know and what connections we need to make, and more importantly, when? Because the thing is with astrology, sometimes there's so much to talk about that we can often, myself included, I do this too, get stuck in just talking about the planets, the signs, the placements. And today I want to show you some more about the timing, about when Mercury is going to move and how that is going to bring more messages about the eclipse and those Aries planets to the surface. So let's dive in. Okay, so just a quick recap about Mercury in Aries. So we're talking about Mercury, the planet of communication, making connections, learning, skills, right? Language, literally, writing, things like that. So when Mercury passes through the sign of Aries, he takes on the lens, he takes on the costume, however it works best for you to understand, of Aries. So what do we know about Aries, right? Aries is spontaneous, it's intuitive, enthusiastic, maybe a little bit more act first, think later, right? That instinct is really strong in Aries. It's a little bit more loud, a little bit more bold, a little bit more assertive. Okay, it could be aggressive, that's possible as well. But we have this really sharpened, quick, possibly impatient mental process, verbal process, connection making process, learning style, right? It's not as sustained. So it's going to be quick punch, quick fire, go short burst like sprinting, right? Rather than running a marathon. So when we're talking about Mercury and Aries, that's approximately what we're talking about. Now, if we go into Mercury retrograde, I'll say it again and again and again through my videos, I'm sure, is not a problem. Okay. In my opinion, it has gotten to be so overblown and so twisted, for lack of a better word, in whatever media form has taken it on in the consensus state. Okay. So if you expect Mercury to bring you nothing but chaos and problems, well, that's probably what you're going to get. Right. So when you look at Mercury retrograde or any transit, it's more important to ask, how is this going to benefit me? Because you realize all of the planets are here to help you. They're not here to cause you problems or make your life a living hell, right? Even though it's popular to blame our problems, or has been popular to blame problems, misfortune, bad behavior, all that kind of stuff on the planets, right? On something outside of us that's doing things to us. But that's old paradigm victim mentality, and we're not going to get stuck there. Okay. We're not going to get stuck in that state. It's okay to be there, pass through it, let it be. But when you dwell there too long, man, it's a yucky swamp down there. So instead, ask, how is this going to benefit you? When we're talking about retrograde, we're talking about RE words. So think reinvent, reimagine, renegotiate, reassess, right? Of course, there are the traditional ones of go back and do over, right? Redo, that kind of thing, review. Essentially, what we're talking about is getting a second chance. Okay. And if you've ever been in a place in your life like, wow, I wish I could have a do-over. Hey, great. Mercury retrograde is for you, right? So this can be a really great opportunity to be able to go back to something, right? And to have a second shot at it. So this is a really, really, really powerful transit. And we'll take a look in a second on how this actually is moving with the chart. So Mercury is sitting next to, on the total eclipse on April the 8th, sitting next to Chiron, Sun, and Moon. Right. So there's lots of opportunities there already. This might come through in an external way, it might come through in an internal way. Be open to how this shows up in your life. But we're talking about really being able to make some powerful connections at the time of the eclipse and then after as well. So let's take a look at the chart and let's see Mercury in action as it's moving closer to the eclipse. It's going to pass over the eclipse point. It's going to stop and then go back, right? Because when we're talking about retrograde, we have, in essence, three parts, right? We have the first act where the planet has gone through already. We have that second act where it's going back, right? It's doing the review part. And then the third act, that's the resolution. Okay, so think of it that way, like initial event, adjustments, resolution. Okay, so let's take a look at the chart. Okay, so I have a bi-wheel pulled up here. A bi-wheel is when we put two charts on top of the other so that we can look at how they interact. So the wheel on the inside, this one here, I did clean up some of the planets. So if you notice there are things missing, that's on purpose because I wanted to make it a little bit easier for us to look at this upcoming eclipse. Okay, so here's our eclipse planets. Okay, on the inside ring here, this is the eclipse. Sorry, I know handwriting on this is just so fun when you're on a laptop. Okay, so here's our eclipse planets on the inside, this total solar eclipse. So most important to pay attention to, right? Chiron, the sun, the moon, and the north node. So these planets right here at 19 degrees, that's the eclipse point, okay? And then we're looking at the north node as well. So today, this outer ring here, okay, this is going to be the Mercury transits. So we're going to watch Mercury, which is this planet right here. Okay, Mercury. We're going to watch him move. Okay, Mercury right now, 27 degrees as of April the 1st. When we get to the total solar eclipse, it'll be at 24. All right, so today, doing this a little bit differently, but we've got the outer ring is the transits, and the inside is going to be how it's affecting the upcoming total solar eclipse. So at the eclipse point, it'll be at 24 degrees, but then we're going to watch. It's going to move backwards. Okay, it's going to go over 19 degrees and it's going to stop at 15 of Aries. So what does that look like in action? Let's do keeping an eye on Mercury. I'm going to make this go forward. Okay, so Mercury, right, going retrograde. He's going to come around to, here we go, 19 degrees. All right, so 19 degrees happens on April around, let's see, April the 16th, okay, when it's first hitting. So this is Mercury going over. This is act number 1, right? Mercury hitting 19 degrees right there. As we go forward, Mercury is still retrograde. It's going to go back all the way to where this north node is. All right, so here it goes. So Mercury is still going backwards, still moving backwards. Okay, we're getting closer to April the 25th. Here we go. Oh, he's almost there. Let's just go back. Wait, oh, sorry. Hold on. Went too far. There we go. Okay, so here's Mercury stopping. Okay, station. Notice he's at 15 degrees now. Okay, right where that north node was during the eclipse. So we had pass number 1 going back, going over that point, right? So now Mercury's reached 15 degrees. It's stopping at the north node and it's going to reverse, right? It's going to go direct. It's going to go back over 19 degrees. So as we approach April 25th, right, if I just went forward a little bit more, there we go. It's turned direct now on that day. So what we want to keep in mind here is that Mercury is going to go forward again. And now we're going to go past, right? We're going to go past April. So as Mercury is direct, it's going to go through the rest of Aries and it's going to go towards Taurus. So let's go forward again. And we're going to move the chart so you can see things kind of starting to move. Mars is moving in as well. That's an important one. But as we go, we're looking for May the 12th here. There we go. So May the 12th, here we go. This is where Mercury started. Okay, Mercury started his retrograde at 27 degrees of Aries. So now what does this mean? Mercury started at 27. It went back. It went over the whole eclipse. It stopped at the north node. And then it went forward and went all the way back over where it's been to the point where Aries started. So over those weeks, right? It's about 6 weeks at this point. Why is this significant? Because Mercury, when it's transiting over things, is bringing up messages that we need. It's bringing up some kind of connection, some kind of new skill, something we were missing that we didn't have that we needed to learn. And it's going to be in regard to these Aries planets, right? This Chiron, Sun, Moon, North Node, and itself. So Mercury, the messenger, what messages should you be paying attention to over the next 6 weeks? We're going to go a little bit further after this, but what's going to come up, right? Get your antennas out there and see what's coming up, what themes are coming up. However your Mercury shows up for you, however your particular learning style is, your particular communication style. This will have to do with where this planet is in your natal chart. Okay, so that'll give you some more clues if you're familiar with that. How does it come up for you? It might come through other people, right? It might come through something returning from the past where you're like, oh, wow, I get it now. I'm making the connection, right? It could be a person, it could be an event, it could be, again, a teacher or a skill that comes up. Those are just some ideas to get you started, but this is really going to pull open what's been going on with the eclipse energy. Now, I did a full video on the eclipse itself, and I took the eclipse through all of the houses, which I'll link below, so you can take a look at that and kind of get, again, a little bit more idea of what this eclipse energy might be bringing up for you in your own particular life. So I'm going to go a little bit past this again because Mars, I want to look at Mars. So I know this is going to be about Mercury, but since we're here, why not look at Mars? So Mars, and again, I talked about this in the total solar eclipse video that I've linked below about this Aries total solar eclipse on April the 8th. But Mars started out over in Pisces, right? So at the time of the eclipse, Mars was over here in Pisces. Now Mars is traveling all the way back. Now, Mars is going to follow Mercury, right? So Mars, being the ruling planet of Aries, is really, really important with this particular eclipse. So not only is Mercury going to go back and forth over the eclipse, dig stuff up, help us make connections, get us set up for the next 2.25 years, right? That this new moon eclipse is kicking off in the Aries part of our chart. But now we have the Aries planetary ruler coming through saying, all right, here's the action. All right, here's the energy. Here's what's really more fully being revealed about the eclipse that's happened on April the 8th. So at this point, we're all the way in May, right? So by May the 13th, Mercury has gone backwards and forwards over this eclipse. Now let's take a look at Mars. Let me clear out just a couple of those last rise. All right, so now we're going to keep our eye on Mars going forward. And when we look at Mars, we're going to watch Mars passing over 19 degrees of Aries. And this is going to happen on May the 25th. Okay, so by May the 25th, here goes Mars. So he was passing over. He just did the North Node point, right? 15 degrees right there on May the 20th. Okay. I don't have Uranus here, but Uranus and Jupiter are next to one another, right? We're going to talk about Jupiter in just a second, but we've got that Mars. Here he is. Now, here we go. Mars is going to go over 19 degrees. Boom. Okay. So when we look at Mars being at 19, now Mars is activating the moon, the sun, and Chiron. Okay, it's going to action, it's going to bring up, it's going to enliven, right? It's going to get us ready to be ready to move. So if you've already listened to my video on the eclipse, I talked about this in the eclipse video as well, but we will not know what the eclipse is actually about until much later, right? Here we are all the way in May. May the 25th, excuse me. There we go. Here we are all the way in May. And we're talking still about getting understanding of what this eclipse really is about, right? Mercury is about to pass over that Jupiter point. The other piece here, and this might be a lot, but stay with me, is when we talked about the eclipse, Mars, right? Over here at 13 degrees. So Mars started in Pisces. Okay. Okay. So here we are, Mars in Pisces. And there's two rulers of Pisces, if you remember. There is the modern ruler, which is Neptune. Neptune's at 28 degrees over here. I just don't have Neptune pulled up because I was trying to make it easier for y'all to see some of the planets. So I pulled out ones that aren't as important right now. So Neptune at 28, right? Pisces. So Neptune's still over there. But the other planet that's important here is the ancient ruler, which is Jupiter. So Jupiter at the time of the eclipse, April the 8th, was at 19 degrees Aries, getting ready to make that conjunction with Uranus, which is a whole other video that I'll do, but that's a big one coming up. It's going to kick off a 14-year cycle. But now Jupiter is away from Uranus and over in Gemini. What's the ruler of Gemini? Our friend, Mercury. So Mercury is about to pass over Jupiter again, that Jupiter point from April the 8th. Okay, so we're looking at by the end of May. In a few days, Mercury will pass over here, while Jupiter, again, is now on its new year-long journey through Gemini, making Mercury even more of a big player. So that's a lot of information I just gave over there. But if we look at this, this is part of the timing, right? And I'll put up, oh gosh, I didn't do that. I'll put up a slide overlay on this so that you guys can screenshot it or write down the dates. But we're talking about April the 1st, right? Mercury going retrograde at 27 Aries. By the time we get to April the 8th, Mercury goes back to 24 degrees. Okay, that's where he is during the eclipse. Fast forward, we've got some other dates, right? Mercury hits that north node, then Mercury stops and goes back and goes over the eclipse point again, 19 Aries. At this point, we're talking about the beginning of May, right? Then we hit what's coming up with Mars. Mars hitting the eclipse point about May the 20th, right? A few days later, we've got Mars, oh, excuse me, Mars hits this on, I have too many dates written down, May the 25th. So on that same day when Mars is hitting the eclipse right here, we have Jupiter moving as well into a new sign. So new information will be coming up in the Gemini part of your chart because everything in astrology is layers upon layers upon layers. It builds on itself. So when people talk about the eclipse and they kind of get locked into the eclipse is just about the eclipse itself on the day of, at the time of, as though astrology, again, is this light switch on off. It's not. Right? Astrology is always moving. It's a clock. It's a calendar in so many ways, in addition to being a language. So when we watch those planets moving around, they give a lot more depth, a lot more insight. They start to unfold, right? If we watched the natural world, if we watched a plant growing, I know it's kind of an obvious reference, but I think it's one that works really well here. It doesn't just, we put the seed in the ground and then bam, it's a full grown, tree. It's not how it works. And so in this time of instant gratification, instant, click now and receive things, we're getting lost the message that it takes time for things to unfold. So I hope that this is helpful when you can see those planets actually in motion and giving you some more idea of why it takes time and where the planets are moving as they go around. Ta-da! Now you're going to be so much better equipped looking at timing. So write down some of those dates and take note of what's going on around those time periods. Okay, we've got a long time. We've got through the end of May while this story is still unfolding, and it will keep going and it will keep going, right? Because as I talked about again in that total eclipse video, all of the moons are part of a larger story anyway, a 2.25 year story. So we're going to keep seeing this unfolding. And when we're talking about this new moon kind of eclipse, which I didn't talk about in the video, which I always try not to get too many of these layers on here. We're talking about a much bigger cycle as well. There's always these big cycles, and then like a spiral, there's smaller ones and smaller ones and smaller ones, right? If you think about a spiral with a funnel, there's things that are very long and there's things that go by pretty quickly. So both are relevant during this Mercury retrograde, and especially how it's talking to the eclipse. So again, Mercury retrograde, it's your friend. All of the planets are your friends. All of the transits are your friends. Yes, including the ones that you don't like maybe Pluto, right? Pluto can be your best friend if you understand what Pluto is actually trying to do for you and not to you. Okay, it's an important distinction there. And I know that gets some people riled up, but if you really get what I'm saying, then this will be real for you and it's going to totally change how astrology lives in your life. Make note of these dates. Just kind of be open to what happens, right? See what comes up, see what kind of messages you get, see what you hear or books that come your way. Those of you that still read books, I know a lot of my listeners still read books. You know, who's coming into your life? Doesn't always have to be a bad thing. You know, this whole like Mercury retrograde only brings back exes that you don't want to talk to. Okay, that's not necessarily not true. I know, double negative there. It can be true. But what is the message there for you? Why might someone like that be coming back? What do you need to revisit for yourself? What do you need to redo for yourself? What do you maybe need to say no to this time around or yes to this time around? Right? What have you learned? Okay. So all of this stuff, when we can put it in context and we can put it in practice around this is benefiting us in some way, it will truly change the way you interact with astrology. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments. Until next time, take care. Mwah.